I want to bring in CTV's political commentator Scott Reid now with more. Hello there, Scott.
Good morning, Marcia.
Where do you want to start? Let's begin with the comments that we just heard from the Prime Minister, if you will. Again, he is defending Team Canada for obvious reasons and saying we got to take Trump seriously when it comes to these remarks around being the 51st state. But really, it is a distraction. It is time for Canadians to come together and really try to avoid this tariff war altogether. Is this message being heard, do you think, in Washington or around the world? Is it resonating with anyone?
My guess is it's quietly resonating with lots of people, but they are unwilling to carry that message loudly to the president. So, I think when the Prime Minister says there's not a snowball's chance in hell that Canada will ever become the 51st state, that's correct. But man, it does feel like we're in hell. And maybe we are a snowball, because every other day, every 4, 5, 6 days, Donald Trump is threatening new tariffs. Yesterday claiming, well, it's not just going to be 25%. It's actually going to be compounded. When I return to the across-the-board tariffs, that means for steel and aluminum, that would equal 50%. That just feels like caprice, like just a whim. Any thought go into that? Any consideration? So I think these appeals, whether they're from the Prime Minister directly, whether they're from the federal finance minister, meaning with the Commerce Secretary, or the Premier fanning out across Congress, with governors, with business leaders, I think the message is getting through. I just don't think politically right now anyone is willing to walk into the Oval Office and say, Mr. President, what you're doing is madness. It makes no sense. We here in America, us business leaders in America, we think it's a mistake. We did hear from the CEO of Ford. He said this is a bad idea.
Yeah.
These steel and aluminum tariffs, they're going to harm the auto industry. They're going to set us back in a significant way. But those voices are so few and far between. Right now, Trump has got everyone cowed and absolutely bleeding cowardice.
The CEO of Ford saying it would actually devastate the industry. Now, I want to ask you about another comment we heard earlier today from Ambassador Hillman, who put out there what I think a lot of people think, Scott, which is Trump has a whole bunch of reasons for why he wants to put these tariffs in place, to pay for things back home, as a tool, as leverage. Doesn't that make it exceedingly difficult to negotiate with someone when you don't really know what their motives or end game really is, what it is?
No question, and that all strikes me as absolutely valid. I mean, yeah, on the one hand, he genuinely believes it'll be a source of revenue that he can then, go off and have delusions that he can eliminate personal income tax and finance all of it from, taxing other countries through tariffs. I'm sure that he thinks that maybe this pressures us into considering broader arrangements like a customs union. I'm sure that he thinks this gives him leverage in renegotiating Canada-U.S. free trade. Like, there are a million fathers to this particular orphan of a trade relationship, as he's rendered it. But, to your question, I don't think we're going to get anywhere negotiating with him. I think we'll pound away, we'll make the case. But ultimately, I think that what will back him off is political and economic pain. I think that 18 months from now, when he loses seats in midterms, I think that will cause him to back off. I think if the stock market starts to fall precipitously, I think that will cause him to back off. That's a distinct and objective measure that he cares about. I think that if we do enough with our retaliatory efforts that it causes real economic pain in the United States, maybe he'll back off. But I don't think there's a kindly worded letter or a well-phrased handshake and discussion that's going to get us an inch with this guy. You can't deal with this guy.
And lastly, I want to ask you, and you sort of touched on this, LeBlanc was asked why Canada hasn't come out with a stronger response to the 25% or the stacking of the tariffs. He essentially said now is not the time. Is that the right strategy, or should we be pushing back a bit harder at this phase?
Now, I think it is the right strategy, and here's specifically why. There will be lots of people that can weigh in and talk loudly and issue kinds of threats. But if you're the government, it's the flip side of the issue we're just talking about. The president is so capricious. It's so off the edge of the table. So, March 12th is a long time from now. What will really happen? What will actually occur? Will we see prior to that a 25% set of tariffs across the board, or will that be a last second hostage taking that will unfold like last time? We don't know. So I think before we actually show the whites of our eyes, we've got to get up close and see the whites of theirs. And, others can talk tough. I think if you're actually making these decisions, you're with the federal government, I think you're going to want to reserve that until the very last moment, until you're confronted with the reality. And then you hit, and you hit hard, and you hit the spots that cause maximum discomfort to the president of the United States.